Hello, and welcome back to Popcorn for Breakfast with your co-host Kirk.
Hello.
I'm your other co-host Cam, and we are back after a week-long sabbatical while I was enjoying some vacay with the fam in lovely, beautiful Disney World. We're back. We haven't been on the stream. Am I right, Kirk? I don't think we streamed before I left for vacation either. I think we just recorded old school.
That's right. It was a busy week for you getting ready and just busy in life. So we dropped an episode sans live.
Yeah. And
don't know if that's the correct grammar, but
no, it works. Sans live is what it will be referred to henceforth. But yeah, so we're here. We're back. Feels good to be back. We have, it's one of those things like when you take off of work and you go on vacation and you come back, you realize you didn't really get any time. You didn't really get any time off of work per se. You just reallocated that time so that you don't do any work for a period of time, and then you do double the work for the next period of time. At least that's how that typically goes for me. And that's very much the case with this podcast as well. It kept going, there still was movie news. There were still things happening. Like the Emmys happened. Netflix had a 3-hour global fan event called TUDUM that happened. It didn't stop on our account. So we have an obligation to kind of fill you guys in on all of those things.
We sure do. And we're here for it. We're strapped in and ready to go.
We are. We're ready to go. I feel fantastic. Today's a good day. I've got, I put a TV in the studio. I'm watching the Cardinals. They're on the brink of winning their 17th straight game, which is crazy to think about. There was, if you know me, I my mood very much flows with sports, and my teams have all been winning recently, which is good. It's got me in a good headspace. And right before we walked in here, I was eating room temperature leftover pizza, which is that's best case scenario. So I'm feeling fantastic. Kirk, how are you doing?
I am very exhausted. I think I have had a back spasm a little bit before this episode started. My dinner also pizza, ironically, and it was 3 hours ago. So I'm not doing well, Cam.
You're hungry.
You seem to be having a great time.
You're hangry.
I am the opposite. I think I really need some chocolate and maybe a pound of chips and dip. I think that's
a pound.
A pound
Wow.
would do well.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. I mean, not to rub it in, Kirk, I didn't realize you were hangry. If I had known, I would have sent provisions to your home to make sure that you were well sustained for this episode. But here we are. We're in the stream. There's no getting out now. We're trapped. But I would say that I had so much food over the last week at Disney World that I don't know that I ever need to technically eat again. So I don't even know why I was eating room temperature pizza on my way in here. I also, most of our vacations tend to be to theme parks, I would say, for my family.
Yes.
Usually the Disney parks. It's just kind of what we enjoy doing. But this one was a little bit different for me because I brought my kids, and it was the first time traveling with both kids, which was exciting. It also allowed us to slow down the pace a little bit because we usually sort of violently rip through the Disney parks at the fastest pace humanly possible. And I have to say, I was skeptical that I wouldn't enjoy myself as much, but I think I enjoyed myself about 10 times more because the pace was slower. I got to snack more. I got to sit more. It was so hot. And I got to people watch more, which is really the best part of a theme park. I'm realizing as I age that people watching is the best. And here's a new thing that I came up with I wanted to share because it makes life so much more fun at a theme park. If you see anyone wearing any sort of sports memorabilia at all for any team and you know the name of the team, just throw them a go insert team. Whatever team they're wearing, throw it their way because that's what they want, and you're making their day. They want the acknowledgement. Otherwise, they wouldn't have worn it to support their team. And they will assume that you are a fan of their team. no matter what it is. So
Yes.
it's like going out and giving out free hugs to people. It's like giving smiles, you know?
Wow. I love this.
Oh,
I
it was
really
so
do.
great. I was just like walking around, hey, go Ravens, buddy. Like, let's go. And people are just getting fired up. So that's my new thing. I'm going to start doing that because I wear sports stuff every now and again. And every once in a while I'll get like a go pack go or something. And, you know, it puts a little pep in my stuff. I'm like, yeah, that guy gets it. You know,
It does.
He's
And
down with it.
secretly, deep down, you're like, I despise the Ravens.
Yeah, if they'll
What a
never know.
joke.
And that's what makes it fun too, because then it's like a little like sneaky game, you know. You're like, go Eagles. And you're like, I hate the Eagles. They're the worst. You know. Oh, I don't hate the
Haven't won
Eagles.
since 1999.
I'm just saying, if you're looking for a way to pass the time, that's a great way to do it. It's a great way to do
I love it. I'm going to partake in this game, not just in amusement parks, but I think in everyday
Anywhere.
life.
You can do it anywhere. That's the great thing about it. It's just a nice way to really spice up your life.
Yes.
Or for a variation on the game, you can confuse them by saying a random team name. Like if they're wearing, like let's use our Ravens example, you just go and be like, hey buddy, go Titans, you know, and they'll be like, what? Does he think this is the Titans? Is he trolling me? Then you put them in a position where they're like, I don't know what's happening.
That would be me, but not in an ironic way. That would just legitimately be me because I don't know the sports teams. Mascots.
So you should just do it. Just go up and if you don't know the logo, just say a name of a team that you do know. Just be like, yeah, Jaguars. Let's go. Let's go Miami Heat. Let's do this.
Yes, go Lancers. Let's go.
Yeah, make up fake team names too. I think that works. Anyway, it's a great strategy. I highly recommend. It really adds a little spice to your day for sure. All right. But like I said, we have tons to get to. And the other thing I wanted to mention is our movie review for this week. So if you're on the stream, you'll get the review tonight. Congratulations. If you're not on the stream and you're listening in podcast form, you'll have to wait until at least this Friday to hear it. I'm excited about this one because we're swinging back and reviewing a movie that you and I both watched separately and had talked about wanting to review on this podcast, but it just didn't really line up. And so we were kind of waiting for the first open pocket, and try as we may, we tried to go see Dear Evan Hansen this weekend, but it just didn't work out in terms of like scheduling. Life happens. I was coming back from vacation. There was all this stuff. We both really wanted to see it. We didn't get a chance to this weekend, which is a bummer, but it gives us the opportunity to swing back and review Pig, starring Nic Cage, which is going to be the subject of our review. So it's an interesting one, and I'm super excited to talk about it. So if you are listening to this in the podcast form and it's like Wednesday or Thursday, do us a favor, go home, rent Pig. You can rent it on like Prime Video, Vudu, whatever. It's 90 minutes. So if you say like, oh, I don't really have time in my evenings to watch a movie, that's not true with this one. Because if you're watching back-to-back episodes of the Great British Baking Show, then you definitely have time to watch this movie because it's only 90 minutes long. And I recommend it because it makes the review experience a little bit more enjoyable.
Indeed.
All right. But before we get into all of that, we have to cover all of the latest news, which of course, like I said, means the Emmys. It means TUDUM. Is that how you pronounce that? TUDUM? Should we talk about that now?
TUDUM.
TUDUM. Yeah, it's the TUDUM. I always say dum dum, you know, if I'm making the sound myself.
I never have a T to it. I always have, it's always duh or buh, you know, it's.
Yeah, it's always duh for me. And if you guys are wondering what we're babbling about, it's the Netflix sound. When you log in or whenever you watch a Netflix original show, it does that dum dum. See, I did D's there.
See, I'm a B guy.
That was the reason they named their event TUDUM or TUDUM or whatever, because they said that's the sound. That is the onomatopoeia of the sound, which it sounds like Kirk and I both disagree and think that they have phonetically destroyed that word.
Yes. I mean, when you look at it, it's either TUDUM or TUDUM, and that does not match the sound. I mean, I heard people really trying hard, and you know, in the event with their lanyards trying to say it, and I'm like, no, you're forcing it. You're trying to make fetch happen.
Yeah, exactly. And your point on TUDUM is exactly right, because if it's TUDUM, there has to be an H.
Yes.
It has to be there, or there has to be some sort of like hyphen M dash type thing in there. They're just wrong. Okay. They're wrong. They should have really thought harder before they made this made up word. Okay. Also, I had heard a rumor back in the day that sound, which didn't come around until after season 2 of House of Cards, the sound was the same sound of Frank knocking on the White House desk. And that was the reason that it was the sound for Netflix. But I have no idea if that's true. Have you ever heard that before?
I have not, but I'm going to look it up furiously while you talk.
Because he does this thing in that show where, and spoiler alert, I don't think many people are going back and watching that due to the Kevin Spacey situation, but there is a thing that Frank Underwood does in that show where he knocks his ring on the table twice, like taps it. And at the end of season 2, when he's finally like in the Oval Office, president of the United States, the season ends with him tapping his ring on the desk, being like, boom, boom, I'm here. And people were saying that is what the sound is. Because it does have sort of a knocking sound to it in a way whenever you log into Netflix. You know what I mean? It has a little bit of a knock to it.
Yeah. If you think of if in that sense, if you're thinking of a thud, you're thinking boom, boom with the beat.
Yeah.
With the beat. Come on.
It's true. You're right. But anyway, we'll figure that out.
I will argue the beat to the ground. I will not stop for the next
I like it.
hour and a half.
I think it's a good hill to die on, to be honest with you. I think you've got a strong point. All right, let's pop it up real quick. Can I do that while you're searching?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's pop it up. All right, so we're going to talk about TUDUM. We just did for a long time, but we're going to talk about that towards the end. I want to start by talking about the Emmys, which the Emmys are one of those things. Like, I think most award shows kind of suck. I especially feel that way now after the Oscars really sucked this year. The Oscars were sort of like the only show that I get excited for, and I still get excited for the awards, but I get a lot less so excited for the show itself. Mercifully, I was on vacation this week, so I didn't get to watch. Darn. You know, what a shame. But I did see the recap of everything, and I watched some speeches from some people and wanted to get some takeaways from the Emmys. I think the big ones for me, Netflix continues to smash the competition. The gap is not shrinking. It's actually growing. Like, I think people thought with Disney Plus coming into the fold, with HBO Max being sort of rolled in there now, that the network streaming service gap would close. Not the case. So Netflix had 44 wins, which was more than twice as many as the next closest, which was HBO at 19, followed by Disney Plus. So it's the Netflix show, basically, at the Emmys. And tonight, once again, as it has been in recent years, and as we saw at the Golden Globes, it was The Crown that was dominating everything. The Crown swept the dramatic category in acting awards. Every single acting award in the dramatic series categories went to The Crown. A couple of HBO shows fared well. And then, of course, Ted Lasso fared really well in the comedy series category, with Jason Sudeikis taking home awards and then them also getting awards in the supporting acting categories. So it did pretty well. Any other thoughts on the Emmys that stuck out to you? I can give one real quick, which was that the variety show, I forget what they named the category, but it was basically like Hamilton versus Inside, the Bo Burnham special. And I was waiting to see how that one panned out. And it was actually Hamilton that took home the award, which I thought was a little bit of a surprise, because I felt like Inside had the momentum and just in general is more indicative of what that category is. Like, it usually goes to stand up or some sort of like performance, Oh Hello or something like that. Right. Not necessarily like we've seen every award show struggle to categorize Hamilton, because it was technically a film. It was technically a film made for TV, but it was also a film that could be considered for Oscars. And so it was this whole thing. But it took home another award at the Emmys.
It's just categorically insane.
It is. They did it on purpose. They were like, listen, we will make this so that it is you cannot catalog it. It cannot go in any category. It will win every award in every category. And now that plan has come into full focus, I think it's pure genius. But I mean, anything else that you took away from the Emmys, Kirk?
You know, when Hamilton dropped, it felt like it happened so long ago. The fact that it's still eligible for awards.
Well, it's been over a year.
Yeah, it's baffling. It's absolutely baffling to me. I don't get it. But I know, award shows got pushed back a lot too, so that's part of it. But it just doesn't seem like real. Like the Queen's Gambit, just also still winning stuff. I'm just like, wait a second, we've done this already. We've already given them their awards. Why are they back for more? And I kind of felt the same way. Variety special. I mean, why don't they just have best stage filmed performance?
Best film stage performance, because that's basically what it is. And there's always something like that.
Yeah, I know. Now we have Come From Away, the pro shot on Apple TV Plus. We have this. We have just dozens of things coming out from stage versions. So that was kind of like, how The Martian won for best comedy at the Golden Globes years ago. Kind of
infamously.
That's how that felt. Yeah. And then with everything else, I'm mostly just shamefaced with Ted Lasso and The Crown, because I have started both. I have not finished either, or even caught up, if I should say correctly. I really need to step my game up on those television shows.
Yeah. I get so confused at these shows when, like, what is being awarded, like which season is being awarded, because right now Ted Lasso season 2 is going on, but those awards were for like Ted Lasso season 1, I assume, right? So it's like confusing because they all release at different times, and then you're like, whoa, which like I'm watching this show right now, are we giving awards to this, or are we giving awards to the last season, or what's happening? But it makes sense, because like I said on the last episode, I loved season 1 of Ted Lasso. Less so on season 2, though it's fine. The Crown, this is like extra motivation for me on The Crown, because I am still stuck on the transition between season 2, season 3 hump, where they changed the cast over, and it shook me to my core and ruined the experience for me, and I'm trying to build it back. But I've almost grinded my way through season 3, and the light is at the end of the tunnel. I've heard nothing but good things about season 4, so I just have to keep climbing, man. Just have to keep grinding after it. But that's the thing. Like no real surprises. I was really glad to see Hacks on HBO get some love. Jean Smart won Best Actress in a Limited Series comedy or something like that. Or no, Best Actress in a Comedy Series is what she won.
Okay.
And they had a nomination for Best Supporting, and they won Best Writing for a Comedy Series. So, that was exciting. Hacks is a good show. If you haven't checked that one out, I think it has a ton of potential. And then Mayor of Easttown. Mayor of Easttown took home some awards in the limited series category, though here's the thing too. Limited series is like, Big Little Lies. I think when it won for limited series, and then they came out with a season 2. It's like, how does that work? And there are discussions about season 2 of Mayor of Easttown, which I am vehemently opposed to, but, like, how does that work? They should rescind your award. If you come out with a season 2, they should be like, no, you were supposed to be a limited series. You lied.
Right. Just like when they, like the Miss Americas get their title stripped if they do something against the code of conduct. That is a code of conduct.
I agree.
You've broken the rules of what you stood for. Come on.
Yeah. And it's happened a couple of times. And also, let's just stop with the stretching. Like, let's just be okay with limited series being a limited series. Like, don't do Queen's Gambit season 2. Don't do Watchmen season 2. Like, please just leave it, because Big Little Lies season 2 wasn't as good at all. And there's a reason for that. It's because the source material, it was written in a certain way. And so when you try to stretch it beyond that, it sucks. Let's just not do that at all.
Agreed.
All right, that's the Emmys. I don't know if there's anything else to talk about there. Michaela Cole won again. First, she was the first African American or first Black woman to win a writing award at the Emmys, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly. She also made history at the Golden Globes.
Nice.
And was cast in Black Panther Wakanda Forever as a result of her amazingness. So congrats to her.
Boom.
Scraping up more wins. And yeah, like I said, really no surprises. None whatsoever. So if you watched it, congrats. I'm glad. I, for one, am glad I did not, because there were no surprises and those award shows usually aren't that great. So here we are. All right, let's move on to some other movie news before we get into Netflix's event. First is Bond. Bond is obviously in the news because of the impending release, finally, of James Bond: No Time to Die, Bond 25, whatever you want to call it, the big finale to the Daniel Craig era as Bond. It's coming out October 8th. And so, as people are wont to do in these scenarios, everybody's already looking ahead to the next Bond. And Barbara Broccoli, who is, of course, the matriarch of the, I don't know, what do you call that family? Like the Bond, they are like the Bond
dynasty.
Dynasty.
The Bond dynasty.
Yeah, they own the rights to all of it. They're the decision makers. They're still heavily involved because of the way that contract shakes out. But according to Deadline, Barbara Broccoli says the search for the next Bond begins next year, 2022. So they're going to wait until this movie's in the rear view, reset, and then start evaluating their options for the path forward, which frankly is exciting to hear that that's happening soon. And of course, one of the questions that has been swirling is, will they do a female Bond? And Daniel Craig was asked about this, and he gave an interesting quote, which I tend to agree with. I'm paraphrasing the first part, which is that he said, there shouldn't have to be a woman James Bond. He said, and I quote, "There should simply be better parts for women and actors of color." So I agree with that statement to a half extent. First of all, is like, Bond was never created as a character for women to idolize. Mm-hmm. Like, he was a male fantasy, and at times one that was, or most of the time, one that was just extrapolated to an extent that's well beyond reality. His relationships with women oftentimes are not what we should aspire to as good people in this world. His abilities and his suave and all of these things are like, it's a fairy tale. It's an action hero fairy tale type of thing. So, I think they're doing like in this movie, is it in this movie where they'll have a female 007? Is she 007 or is he still 007?
She will be 007.
She will be
the
007.
Rumor. Yes.
Yeah, that's the rumor. So, like, people were like, oh, female 007. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is a female James Bond or a female Bond or whatever. Like, I think that sort of, he's right. Like, they should just create better roles. People get mad whenever they like rewrite characters, like comic book characters, as different people and things like that. And that's because they're an established character. But right. I see no reason why you couldn't have a Black James Bond, an Indian James Bond, whatever, like a Bond of color. But for me, James Bond, like, if I was, I don't want to say, like, I don't want to speak out of turn, but like, if I was a woman, I wouldn't want to be James Bond, because that's not a character that like is created for me. It's created for a different purpose. So let's just like turn the page on that and move on. I don't know.
Right. There'd be a lot of retconning that would have to go around, because, all of the Bonds are somewhat interconnected. Obviously, they take place in different eras. They take place in different statuses of Bond's life. Strangely enough, they still reference later on that he was married, which I still don't understand how that works, but whatever. But the world of James Bond, the multiverse of James Bond, really doesn't lend itself to be a woman's role. So absolutely, I say, not write your own. Like, that sounds offensive, right? Or it sounds combative. It's no, like, write one that would be better than this. Write one that would be the ideal woman of today,
Yeah.
make that character stand out and tell me what they're struggling through, what they're fighting through, or what that looks like today.
Well, yeah, because I think again, it's like people want the character that they grew up with to stay within the confines of a certain character mold. So changing the color of their skin or their background or whatever, I don't think is a big change, but changing their gender is a big change. You look at Miles Morales. I think Miles Morales is like the example that I will always give, right? They made a new person Spider-Man, but it wasn't Peter Parker. It was something better. It was a character that had a rich background
Right.
with he had a dad who was African American and a mom who was Hispanic and grew up in this, diverse neighborhood and more accurately reflected the types of places that people are growing up now, the types of people that people are growing up with. They didn't say we made Peter Parker black because that would be lame. They created a new character that was better, that had its own story, that was richer. And for my money right now, like Miles Morales is 1,000 times more popular and cool than Peter Parker, in my opinion, like just based on what I see. When my kids watch the Spider-Man show, they want to be Miles. They want to be that Spider-Man. They want to be, when they act like Spider-Man, it's that version of Spider-Man. So I think they can do the same thing and create female action heroes that are better than James Bond, exactly what Daniel Craig's saying. So people are going to get all hot and bothered about that quote. I don't think they need to. I think he makes a good point. So
no, what they should be bothered about, and this part's just kind of just straight up funny, is that, Daniel Craig is famously quoted, paraphrased again, that he'd rather, gouge his own eyeballs out with his fingernails than do another Bond film, aka No Time to Die. But then now there's a free movie on, I think on all platforms, definitely on iTunes, about his final run as James Bond. You got the big ending trailer that showcases him. It's like, finally it has arrived, and they delayed it to make sure that it's a big event. And he's like tearing up. He's like, man, what a ride. Right before
you're
right
like, yeah,
before.
I thought you hated this, dude.
I mean, oh, how the turntables have turned, Mr. Daniel Craig.
I know.
But I'm glad he did it, because I think that it brought him to an appreciation that, would people know who Daniel Craig is without Bond?
No.
Yes. Would he
I disagree.
Oh,
I disagree.
Would he be at the level that he is? Absolutely not. And
Oh,
that's something
yeah.
to say about
He wouldn't be a household name.
Right.
Yeah.
It's something to say about James Bond, because, I'm pretty sure my wife Aubrey has never seen a single Bond movie. And I'm shocked, because this is number 25. That's a lot of movies to dodge, but I mean, bravo at the same time. So the power of James Bond, like, she knows who the current James Bond is. She's always known who the current James Bond is without seeing that movie. So it's to call this character irrelevant is just a little bit immature, and I'm excited to see Daniel Craig take it on. I'm excited to see what version of Bond we get next.
Yes, and that's what I want to talk about too. First of all, I want to make one comment on that real quick, because I can remember that when Daniel Craig was cast as Bond, the big scandal was him having blonde hair. Do you remember this? They were like,
"Oh, I do."
They were like, "Oh, can Bond be a blonde person? Can he be blonde?" So I just want to say, like, yes, there are things that we're still working on in this world, obviously, but we should celebrate some of the small wins. Like, we are legitimately talking about having a black James Bond or a James Bond of color, what have you. Like, that is for sure on the table. And at this point, I would be somewhat surprised if it wasn't at least a strong consideration. When in 2008 or whatever, we were talking about, oh, he has blonde hair, James Bond is brunette or whatever. Like, we are making progress. So that's a good sign. But I do want to talk about who you want to see as Bond, Kirk. I have some picks of my own, but I don't know. Do you have any in your hip pocket that you have just like waiting for a rainy day?
My number one choice has to go to Mr. Superman himself, Henry Cavill.
Really?
Henry Cavill, yes. He is number one on my list. He has been a buzz for it for a long time. I believe he auditioned for it. And he lost to Daniel Craig. I believe he was in like the top 3, if I remember correctly. and seeing him just progress his career and literally enter every single franchise, it only makes sense for him to not sabotage, but to take over the Bond franchise as well. And I think we got a lot of calm, cool, and collected of him from Enola Holmes. I know he was in Man from U.N.C.L.E., which did get him some good reviews. It was in Mission Impossible, excellent, excellent. But I think in Enola Holmes there was this again calm, cool, and collected version of him that was very suave. There was some swagger there that he didn't have to throw his weight around. He was just present, and that's what Bond is. He is a presence. So that's my biggest pick right now.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. Like taking on a role that has a certain amount of weight to it. I think it almost took Daniel Craig some time to grow into that a little bit. I think Skyfall is really where he comes into his own, and you're like, that's Bond.
Yes.
Casino Royale is a fantastic Bond movie in its own right, but the whole time you're kind of watching this going like, who's this rugged 00 agent? You know, it's not James Bond for sure. He's not polished enough. He's a little grittier. You know, he didn't really carry himself that way. So the fact that Henry Cavill's played Superman, he's now played Sherlock Holmes, albeit as a supporting role. You may have a point there. My top pick would be Tom Hiddleston. I love Tom Hiddleston. I think he would be great in that role. I loved him in The Night Manager, which is a very similar role. And he's only 40, so I think he's still, you know, Daniel Craig is 53 now, so the timeline might be there for him to star in a few movies if they turn him out quickly. I also like the idea of Daniel Kaluuya a lot.
Okay.
I like the idea of Daniel Kaluuya. I think he could be a really cool Bond. He has acting chops galore. Him in a tense negotiating situation would be incredible. And I want to see him as an action hero. I just do. I think he has that within him, and I want to see him go there. And then my final wild card pick would be Dev Patel. I love Dev Patel. I think after I saw the Green Knight and Lion, like he has grown into this like very tall, very suave type of guy. He has the sort of like bedside manner that you need to be James Bond in the way that he delivers, the timbre of his voice, etc. I think he's got the right bone structure for it. I don't know. I think it could be a good fit. So those are some ones that have popped up on my list. And we've got a comment about Henry Golding, who just starred in Snake Eyes and was also in the Crazy Rich Asians and a few others. That would actually be a really good pick too, one that I had not considered. So
excellent choice.
We shall see, but we'll keep you guys posted there. Next up, Disney, man, they're finding themselves in the courtroom a lot these days. Most recently with back in August, a copyright termination suit was filed by the Steve Ditko family, one of the creators of some very popular characters. It's not the first time that they've come up against this kind of thing, but basically what I wanted to clarify, and this is the Hollywood Reporter is all over all this stuff. What people were grabbing and throwing all over the internet is Disney might lose Spider-Man in 2023, or Disney might lose the rights to Iron Man and Doctor Strange, and like crazy. It was getting wild out there. To be clear, that is not on the table. What they are lobbying for is to take a share of what Disney has. So the way that it goes right now is that Disney has the full rights to those characters and can use them however they want and keep 100% of the profits. What this lawsuit or the active suits that are out there right now for these characters, and there's a bunch of them like Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Falcon, Black Widow, Thor, Spider-Man, etc. What these lawsuits would do was take away full control of the characters from Disney and basically make it show it becomes a profit sharing situation. So Disney would still have creative control over what to do with the characters. They still have the rights to the characters. So there's no risk of like the MCU is going away, but it would just be, they would have to give some of their money to the estates of these people who created these characters. So
yeah,
this has happened before. It happened with DC. DC ended up winning. Those same two lawyers actually are on this case as well. So that's kind of funny. Like going against each other again, fighting on the same sides that they were, just with Disney this time. So it'll be interesting to watch, but I did want to grab that and just be like, don't worry. It's like, we're not losing movies or anything like that. It's just clickbait, guys. It's just clickbait. All right?
Yeah, and I don't think the families would want to ultimately. They would not ultimately want to own the rights to them and not be able to sell them out again, because then the responsibility is on them.
Yeah,
yeah,
they would lose their value, and
death threats.
They'd have to end up selling their rights anyway. So really, like, what they want is just profit sharing of it, and they know that it's at its most profitable with Disney. So that's like, sometimes you got to use your brain when you see these like these headlines floating around that like, oh, they're gonna lose their control. Like, come on. No matter what the scenario, it's at its most valuable with Disney and creative control of it. So however it shakes out, they're still going to be creating stuff. It's going to be okay.
Right.
Good point, Kirk. Okay, next up, this Mario movie. Can we talk about this Mario movie? Over the weekend, I think it was over the weekend, there was it was like Thursday, Friday-ish.
Yes.
There was casting news for a Mario, as in Super Mario Bros. Movie that's just being called Mario, that's in the works from Nintendo and Illumination, which is the studio famously behind Despicable Me. And the cast was released in a video that was like showing the logo next to the people's faces. And there were some hilarious reaction videos to this, like on TikTok, people just losing their minds. And here is the cast as it was announced. Okay. Chris Pratt will be Mario. Anya Taylor-Joy is Peach. Charlie Day of Always Sunny fame is Luigi. Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. Keegan-Michael Key as Toad. And Jack Black as Bowser. And those are just the people that they've paired with, like, that they're telling us which characters they're playing. There's tons more people on the cast list that are worth noting, but we don't know who they're playing yet. So, with that in mind, what is your reaction to this casting?
Well, first question, do we have a verification that it is an animated film?
It is an animated film. Yes.
Okay. Which makes sense, right? Because of the studio. But you never know. You never know these days. Why not?
No, for sure. You definitely don't know. It's not, you can't make safe assumptions there.
My second note is my favorite fan vote for casting would be Danny DeVito as Wario.
Oh, the Danny DeVito as Wario, that's a slam dunk. That would be incredible.
Oh man, that came out immediately, and I really think with the power of social media, I really think it's going to happen. I don't see how it doesn't happen with Charlie Day in the seat right there as well as Luigi. So come on, just give us that at least and make this movie a little bit more interesting. I mean, I guess you have just like, years and years of possible storylines and content, but can you really make a narrative that's exciting enough for that long?
So I think my biggest concern is the dialogue. I think the story will be there because they've made plenty of games that are like long and compelling to an extent. But what will the dialogue be? There's never lengthy dialogue in these games ever. And the characters have absurd caricature-ish voices. Like even Princess Peach's voice is so high pitched that like it's insanity. And obviously Mario and Luigi have very thick, over-accentuated Italian accents. Bowser basically never does anything but, you know what I mean? Like that's the extent of what he does. And like Donkey Kong makes noises that like no human being can recreate. So I am perplexed as to how this will work from a dialogue perspective.
Actually, it's just 90 minutes of nonsense and non sequiturs. Like, let's go.
Honestly, like that's what I'm picturing, to be honest with you. Like that's all I can imagine in my brain right now. So yes, it will be interesting because it's like, you have to do the accents, right?
Yes.
Like you have to do the Italian accents, but you also have to make this movie like, you have to make it so that they can talk to each other. Like Bowser has to be able to talk. and it's Jack Black. So like you're going to want him to talk.
Yeah.
And like Donkey Kong has to be able to talk, even though he doesn't really in the game. So that's what I'm saying. Like I cannot picture in my brain how this works. I really cannot.
It'll all be dialogue bubbles. That's it. Just nonstop action from start to finish, dialogue bubbles to keep you in the loop, and just mad chaos.
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm perplexed. I mean, I think people were immediately like, Chris Pratt, what? I saw somebody go, people love to hate on Chris Pratt for whatever reason. Pretty much everything people throw out about him is not true or unfounded. So it's a bummer because he's such a nice guy. And like everybody who has worked with him, regardless of what their political affiliation, religious affiliations, etc., they have nothing but good things to say about this guy.
That's right.
But I digress. They were like, he's not even Italian. I'm like, well, yeah, the guy who's played Mario and Luigi for like 20 years isn't Italian. He's like of French descent and like natively speaks English, French, and Spanish. He's not even slightly Italian, and that's Charles Martinet. But I'm just like, come on, like at least come up with the real complaint. Like you can just say Chris Pratt as Mario makes no sense. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. It makes no sense. None of this does, but here we are. And I have to say, no matter how it looks or whatever, I'm there opening night because this is must see. And I love Mario. So this is like, it will probably be a giant dumpster fire, but I'm so here for it.
I mean, I think it's going to be more terrible than Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I really do.
I know.
It's a big goal to be worse than Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie.
That movie was a big stinker.
But I think Mario could take that throne, unfortunately.
It's possible that movie, like they saw that movie sucked and did as well as it did in theaters. And they were like, yeah, we're definitely making this because it doesn't even matter. Like that movie's getting a sequel,
Right.
So it's like, it doesn't matter. It can look like trash. It can be trash and it still will print money. So
hey man, just like the producers, that's the whole
is the director. There is a bidding war right now between a whole slew of studios, including Lionsgate, Apple, Netflix, Amazon, Universal, MGM, Warner Bros., Sony, etc., to buy the film.
Quibi.
They're going to come out victorious. Quibi's like, this is it. This is the hill we die on. This is where we make our comeback. But that's on the way from via the Hollywood Reporter. The next Fantastic Beasts movie, which will be the third in the series, had its title announced, which is Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. Yeah. The last one was called The Crimes of Grindelwald. So they're kind of staying on that, like the blank of insert person here. So we'll figure out. I mean, Dumbledore for sure has secrets galore. I didn't like that guy for a single day, Dumbledore. He's got shifty intentions.
Yes.
So we'll find out what he's all about. And of course, Johnny Depp not returning for that film. That's the big story there. And we got to look at the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, Licorice Pizza, which all-time title already, incredible. Yes. It very much has like an older Paul Thomas Anderson feel to it with the trailer, like a Boogie Nights type situation. And something I did not know until the trailer is that Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, Cooper Hoffman, is starring in this movie. And I believe it's his first appearance in a film. So exciting stuff there.
Very cool.
All right, let's talk about TUDUM. We're going to go quick through this. I'm going to give you all of the big headlines that I saw coming out of this thing, and I want to know which one you're most excited about. Can we do that?
I can do that.
All right. The Witcher was renewed for season 3. Enola Holmes 2 is in the works with all the original cast reprising their roles, and that's set to begin filming soon. Emily in Paris season 2 is coming out December 22nd. Tiger King 2 is coming out November 17th. Extraction 2 is about to begin filming in Australia. Cobra Kai season 4 comes out on New Year's Eve of this year. We got our first look at DC's The Sandman for Netflix. Sex Education, which is about to start season 3, is renewed for season 4. We got a new look at the Cowboy Bebop live action show. We got a new look at Stranger Things 4. We got a new look for the final season, which is a 2-part season, of Ozark, and then a new trailer for The Harder They Fall, which is the Western film starring Regina King, Lakeith Stanfield, Jonathan Majors, Zazie Beetz, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Which of those, Kirk, which of those is the most exciting to you?
Well, you threw me through a loop there with The Harder They Fall, because you'd given me like about 30 different items that I was trying to write down with my pen, and I just couldn't keep up. So I need a Scantron next time, and I'd like to fill out my answers.
Your bubbles, yeah.
Well,
we can arrange that.
GH. I'm gonna go. So taking out The Harder We Fall, because Lakeith Stanfield should always get his own category. So taking that out of the mix here, because that's going to be excellent. I'm gonna go top to bottom: Stranger Things season 4, Tiger King 2, Enola Holmes 2, Ozark season 4, part 1 and 2, and Extraction 2. In that order, sir. I'm so excited for those.
Did you see? So speaking on the Stranger Things 4, I am so turned around on this season of Stranger Things.
Would you say you're upside down?
I am. I'm upside down. Upside down. That's where I'm at right now, because I feel like every time they show us something, first of all, they show us like tiny little tiny.
Hold on.
What?
Upside down. Is that like an S Club 7 song?
It was. Yeah.
Yes.
You're welcome.
I caught up late. Thank you. Continue.
Anyway, every time they show us something for Stranger Things 4, it's like very small. First of all, this clip was very small. And I have no way. It's all unrelated. It's like all like, here's this thing over here. And so now it's like there's this house where the Creel house, where like back in the day, there was a family who had some sort of encounter with the upside down and that whole situation. And now they're like in this house. Like, is this the house that they moved to? Meaning like Winona Ryder and her fam, or what is happening?
That would make sense. That would make the most sense, and the only way that this would be possible to continue, right? Like the upside down just doesn't give up. The upside down is it's bigger than just in Hawkins, right?
Right.
So that would be exciting. If it's just like a house they stumble upon, which it could be, right? Like it's down the street in the neighborhood they moved to. I guess that's all right. But man, if it's the house they live in, I mean, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah,
like in all great horror series, of which there are very few, I think, great horror series, there is a point where you figure out like there's no getting away from this. Like it's bigger than you, and you are linked to it forever. And so this feels like that point. So I like your picks a lot. I'm going to go off the board and go with The Sandman, because first of all-time audiobook. This is the Neil Gaiman interpretation of The Sandman. It had a stellar audiobook, one of the best ever, with a great cast, including James McAvoy. Neil Gaiman narrated it, and they just came out with the second one, which I have waiting on my phone for a rainy day to listen through it. But the feel of the show looks like the graphic novel and gives off the exact right vibe. And I'm very excited about that, because you always kind of wonder, when they adapt something like that, like, will it actually live up? And I feel like it will. So I'm very excited for that.
So is this like Marvel's Sandman? Is this correct? What is this?
No, DC. Yeah, it's a DC series. It's like a graphic novel, like almost like a mythological type story. But okay. It's good stuff. All right, next up, real quick, and we've gone way long because we had 2 weeks of stuff to talk about, but quick things on what to watch for. Star Wars Visions is available on Disney Plus to watch now. These are the the Star Wars shorts that were created by various anime studios. Took a peek at some of that stuff. Really slick, really cool. Loving it so far. So highly recommend that on Disney Plus. What If episode 8, which is the penultimate episode, that drops tomorrow, which is Wednesday, September 29th. And that is what they're officially calling it. What If Ultron won? What If Ultron won? So that's definitely an enticing one. The Many Saints of Newark, which is the Sopranos prequel film, is releasing this Friday in theaters and on HBO Max. Venom Let There Be Carnage releases in theater this weekend. And I think that's it. Promising Young Woman is now available on HBO Max. That one caught my eye. It's worth checking out. If you didn't get to catch it during the awards cycle, it's now available on HBO Max.
And we reviewed it, so make sure you listen to our
episode. We
did,
yeah.
After.
Swing back. Great point, Kirk. Good plug. We did review it, so go back and listen to it after you check out the movie. All right. Without further ado, let's move into our review of Pig by popping it up one last time.
Pig.
All righty. We've got a movie review, and it's not the movie we thought we would be reviewing this week. We really thought we'd be reviewing Dear Evan Hansen, as we are both huge fans of the musical, and we're definitely anticipating seeing the film. We will still do that. We will still see the movie, trust us. But for now, we had to do some shuffling of chairs with the schedule. And so we swung back to get to review a film that stars Nicolas Cage called Pig. And Kirk and I have a long storied love of Nicolas Cage, and mostly memes of Nicolas Cage. There was a period of time, a long period of time, where Kirk and I we told each other that we could only react to things with Nicolas Cage gifs and memes. And we did so for a very, very long time. And it was one of the happiest periods of my entire life, I have to say.
There was even 1 week that was dedicated to no communication except Nicolas Cage memes or GIFs.
Yeah, which was extraordinarily difficult. But at the same time, not as hard as you would think, because the catalog of such content is so deep that you could really... I'm convinced you could write a book with like a pretty coherent book of just Nicolas Cage memes and GIFs.
Yes, honestly. You've heard of BJ Novak's The Book with No Pictures. What if we had the book of Nicolas Cage GIFs and memes? This is coming soon from Popcorn for Breakfast.
Yeah, I think it would be great. Like I said, I really did enjoy that period of time. They were always hilarious, and we would use the same ones over and over again. Like, I don't know which one that is. I don't know which movie it's from. Maybe it's The Wicker Man, where he slaps that old lady. That's a classic. Yes. I will always use that video or GIF. That's an all-timer. But it's just great. So being able to be back in Nicolas Cage's presence via this movie Pig was an honor and a privilege, and we were excited about it. And I can't wait to review this movie. So let's dive into it.
Yes.
I'm synopsing this week. And this movie, it's called Pig, P-I-G, just one word, like Madonna. And the basic plot of this film is there's this guy who lives in the woods. His name is Rob, and he has a truffle pig, which, if you didn't know, pigs, I learned this from a video game called Stardew Valley. Pigs can find truffles underneath the ground that are used to make truffle oil and other kinds of delicacies. And, they're very popular in like the culinary world because they have all these different properties that people can use in cooking and things like that. And so truffle pigs can be a very valuable asset. Well, anyway, he lives out in the woods with his truffle pig, and they just hang out and they find truffles and they do their thing. One day his pig gets stolen, and a la John Wick almost, he goes to find his pig. That's the whole movie. It's sort of like Odysseus. It's like the Odyssey if Odysseus was just looking for his pig. Like he partners up with this guy Amir. They go and they follow leads to try to find the pig. They get clues. They put the pieces together. They have to get to the end of the story and try to find the pig. That's really it. Along the way, there's tons of different revelations about, how Rob was this really famous chef in Portland and like was the most renowned chef in all of Portland and huge in the culinary scene. And then he vanished off the face of the earth and all this other stuff. There's all these little tie-ins throughout that make the story really rich. But at its crux, it's a guy who loves a pig and he wants the pig back. That's it. And that's why it's called Pig, quite simply.
I don't know if there's anything else to add except one of my favorite scenes it's absurd, but it's there's an underground culinary fight club that happens in this film,
Yes.
and that just paints the picture of how the great lengths that Nicolas Cage went through to get back to his pig. He just like gets pummeled and pummeled and pummeled by a very small man in comparison to his stature, in order to win back this pig. So he'll do anything to save this pig, anything.
Right. And the whole time you're like wondering why? It's just a pig, right? Like what's
Hmm.
going on? Are the truffles that valuable? Whatever. And we'll talk about, what the story sort of ends up being and what it means, and we'll talk about if it works or not. So let's dive into it. Acting superlatives. I'll kick us off. Highly unsurprisingly, I'm going with Nicolas Cage for my Oscar. My Oscar goes to Mr. Nicolas Cage, and I gotta say, we call this category the Oscar goes to, but there's a real shot for Mr. Nic Cage to snag himself a nomination for this performance, which is a really beautiful, a really, really beautiful performance. What I love about it is how, and this is going to sound like I'm being a tool, I'm not trying to be, it is, the performance is complex because of its simplicity. Like, because he is such a down to earth guy, and because there's really not much more to him per se. I mean, obviously, like the layers of the onions get peeled back as you go through the movie. But really, at the end of the day, like everybody's trying to figure out why he wants this pig or what he's about. But really, it's just that he cares about the pig. He loves the pig. And he loved his wife who passed away. And this pig is, a connection to that. And it's another way for him to feel love and to feel a connection when he feels like he's lost that and his world's been turned upside down. So it's one of these things where the performance is profound because it's simple. And that's really a great microcosm for this whole movie. Like, it's profound in its simplicity. It's like you want there to be this greater meaning and all this stuff when it's really just like, hey, I think they even say like, we don't get much to care about or something like that. In the movie, there's a line where he says like, we don't get very many things to care about. And that's really the point, is like, loving something is such a rich experience that like, that's what it's all about. He just loves the pig. He wants the pig, the end. And he gives this performance where it just, you see every layer of what it means to love something. You see the desperation, you see, the hopelessness at times or the helplessness that you feel sometimes when something you love is in danger or something like that. You see every layer of it, and it's Nic Cage on full display. He never gives more than he has to. He keeps it totally under control, that discipline is what makes the performance so good, because it would be easy to try to overdo it. I think in this role, and in a lot of ways, it's very tantalizing to want to overdo it because there's very little spoken dialogue, and he didn't do it. He gave a really profound character study because he was able to keep it under control, and because he just gave a really real, honest interpretation of the character the way that it was written. So for me, it's Nicolas Cage.
Well, I have some shocking news for you. I am also choosing Nicolas Cage.
Oh, dude, I was like, are we about to duke it out right now?
I chose the pig. I chose the pig.
Dude, would be a great pick.
The pig doesn't have enough screen time, unfortunately, to warrant the Best Actor award. There are limitations. There's structure. There's code of conduct. Okay, I don't want deleted scenes to skew my ideas as well. Nicolas Cage wins this 100%. Nicolas Cage, if you don't know him, then you've never seen a movie, because his entire goal is quantity over quality. It's that simple. He will not say no to a job. He will simply do as much as he can. And when he gets rejected from jobs, man, he is ticked, because he will literally take on any job. This one is one of his quality performances. That's easy to say. He's honestly coming into, I don't know if it's the stories are getting written around Nic Cage recently, or if finally he is just become every single story possible and he can embody every single story possible. But this one specifically, I think, what fits well for him, because you have this man Cam mentioned several times over, he's desperate. He is hopeless. He is distraught. He is longing to get back this creature that has brought him comfort. I think part of that, what we see in Nic Cage, is a discovery too, a discovery of how much he lost. Because on a day-to-day basis, that's his pig. They go out, they hunt for truffles. That's his job, his way of life. Then he goes home. He takes care of that pig because him and that pig are cohabitators. But as he goes along, he is going through all these stages of grief almost, not knowing that the end product is that the pig is dead. Sorry if you haven't watched it.
Spoiler.
But what we see in Nic Cage is that it's just relentless. No matter what gets thrown his way, he knows that he has to survive in order to find the pig if there's even a remote chance that it's alive. And so you don't see him in full rage the entire time. No, because he's human. So you see him cracking jokes, very subtle jokes, or more so judgments at other people. And there is the scene specifically that like changed. There's like scenes in movies or scripts that like inspire you. Is that those 4 lines that Rob says, which Cam already touched base on, where he's talking to the chef in his that formerly used to be one of his students, basically. And he does say that, he says, "You don't even see yourself. We don't get a lot of things to really care about." It's pretty crazy how well he delivered that line, Nicolas Cage, and it really stuck with me. And I want those 4 lines written, embroidered somewhere in front of me at all times, because they're so powerful. But they wouldn't have been as powerful without how Nic Cage navigated that scene. So again, we talk about often how we want like a best scene category in the Oscars. I think that would absolutely win, just a full home run on that. So Nic Cage, well done.
Yeah, great pick, and good insights there, Kirk. It's good stuff. Let's move over to the other side. Supporting cast, which was thin. There's just not a ton of people in this movie, but there are a few standout performers. So I'll be interested to see where both of us went. I feel like I went with sort of like, if you saw the movie, you would be like, this is the main actor and this is the supporting actor. And I went with the supporting actor, which is Alex Wolff, who plays Amir in this movie, which is the guy who is buying truffles from Nicolas Cage. He's like Nic Cage is effectively his truffle dealer. And when his pig gets stolen, Nic Cage works with Amir to try to get it back. And so they're sort of partners in crime on the path to get the pig back. Amir wants the truffles for his business. And he finds out, you come to find out that the reason for that is that his father, Darius, is in the same business as him. And he's trying to, show that he can do things on his own, that he doesn't have to work for his dad, that he can blaze his own path. And what unfolds is this really, really rich character arc and story behind Amir. The fact that he views Rob as this like very almost repugnant character, this guy who lives in the woods, doesn't shower, like hangs out with a pig, like all he cares about is a pig. What in the world? But he comes to learn that like that love that he has for that pig is realer than anything Amir has in his life. He realizes that his relationship with his father is a shell. And so what you get with Amir's character is this, you see him, you watch him as his whole world, his whole perception of reality unravels around him. And Alex Wolff's performance as he goes through that gradually, almost at the same time as the audience in a way, is just lovely. It's really well done. It reminds me of like the analogy I thought of. Have you seen when they do this at restaurants, really fancy restaurants, where they have like a magic chocolate ball thing and they like pour hot coffee or something on it and it melts away and reveals like the dish? That's what he is. Like he's the chocolate ball, and the movie, like the realization of the movie is pouring over him and he's melting away to reveal a whole new character. And the acting performance was stellar. His emotions were so raw, so real. he ends up basically playing two characters in this movie because his character changes so much from the beginning to the end, and he does a stellar job. And this was a true scene stealer for me because I've seen Alex Wolff in a few things. He was recently in M. Night Shyamalan's Old, which I didn't get a chance to check out yet, but my first introduction to him was in Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, the reboot, I guess, of that series. And I thought his performance was less than stellar in that movie, and I thought he was just kind of a placeholder, throwaway kind of character. And I wasn't overly impressed with that, and I didn't think that he was going to make much. But this performance totally changed my view on what he brings to the table, and I thought it was stellar. So, Alex Wolff, kudos to you. Great job on this performance.
It was a close call. It really was, because he was fantastic. My scene stealer goes to Mr. David Nell, who plays that once student for Rob, for Nicolas Cage, his character. This guy rolls in. They go to this restaurant. The fight club has already happened. Nic Cage is just bloodied beyond belief. He's in his dirty, nasty old clothes. You have Amir, who's sitting there like dressed to the nines, and he weaseled his way into this restaurant, right? And then you get this chef, Chef Finway, and he has a big job to do, because this movie would work without this exchange that we've already mentioned. But if it doesn't work, it's that less powerful. This guy is quirky. This guy is weird. But this guy has a deep understanding of who he really is, and who he's really hiding, and who he's pretending to be. This guy, David Nell, he's only had 48 credits, but he's been in some big stuff. Splash, Turner and Hooch, what's it called? Saint Elsewhere, the TV show, Tracy Ullman Show, Alf, like some pretty big, like memorable, like side roles that really seem to stand out to me. Some things that I want to go back and watch. What's really funny in his history is in the show Saint Elsewhere, which was a doctor's show. Denzel Washington is in the series, among other many big cast members who went on to do great things. The episode he was in was an episode called A Pig Too Far. I don't think that's a coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's a ha gotcha from the director. So all that to say is that what an incredible responsibility to walk in and be in this role. It probably took a day to film, maybe less, with Nicolas Cage, who probably lived out in the wilderness to get ready for this role for a year, and just knocked it out of the park. Without this scene, without that dialogue, without that specific care to that conversation, the whole movie, I think, falls apart. So bravo.
Yeah, it's the impact moment. It is the impact moment where, here's this guy who has built this restaurant basically in the image of, Nic Cage's character, Rob. This guy was sort of rejected by Nicolas Cage and wanted to, you can get the sense that he lived his whole life with this chip on his shoulder. I'm going to make the best restaurant in Portland. And here he is, and he's got it. And he's face to face with the guy who drove him on this path, the person who he's been imagining all this time. And that guy, Rob, Nic Cage, just hits him with the, why didn't you make the pub, that you said you were going to build? You wanted to make a pub. You cared about that. Why didn't you do it? And he just melts because everything that he's worked for is evaporating around him, and he's realizing that he's wasted parts of his life caring about something that's not real, because it's not something he loves. It's just something that he was chasing. And man, you're right. You're absolutely right. If that performance doesn't work, then the thesis of the movie sort of falls apart right then and there. It's dead upon arrival. So great job. Next up, let's talk about Showstopper. For me, when I reviewed this movie on Letterboxd, I called it a masterclass in trusting your audience, which for me, that's the showstopper. We talk about it a lot. The best way to write a good movie is to trust your audience to the extent that you can. Films that do an excellent job of storytelling always do an excellent job of trusting their audience, because you have to be comfortable leaving your audience in the gray for a period of time in order to make the aha moment feel really impactful, euphoric, satisfying to the narrative. And this movie operated so well in that gray, leaving the audience in this limbo state of, okay, I've got some information, but not all, and I want to learn more. You know, keeping them in a position where they want to lean forward and learn more, versus being like, not interested enough. And that takes guts and it takes skill to keep people in that pocket where they want to learn more, even though they don't know everything, and they're not bored. Right? They're not confused or bored or getting frustrated with it. And this movie sits right in that pocket the whole time. Right from the beginning, they start you with these, the movie's fractioned out into like 3 segments or 4 segments, and they're all names of courses during a meal. And at the beginning, you have no knowledge that he's a chef, no knowledge of any of this stuff. And so when the first chapter hits and it throws up that title card with the meal or like the first course of the meal, you're like, huh? You know, what does this mean? But then as it unfolds, you're like, okay, I see what's going on here thematically. And that's sort of a microcosm for the whole movie, because they're doing that the whole time, dropping little nuggets for you to want to follow up on. And then when you get to the reveal of why that piece of information was important, they reveal it in such a way that it's like, oh man, what that enriches the narrative so much. So it's incredible. The narrative, frankly, is just really, really well done, and the payoff is excellent. You end up with a really simple yet profound story, something that's impactful, that lives with you. Like Kirk said, it's powerful stuff that makes you think about the way that you live your life. That's, if a film can do that, man, it's really knocking it out of the park. And for that, the only reason that it's successful in doing that is because the writers trusted their audience. And I want to give a shout out to the story writers on this movie, which is our director, Michael Sarnowski. This is actually his first really like major feature film. So this is quite a debut. And Vanessa Block, who helped write the story there. So I want to give a shout out to them because they wrote a really beautiful one, and one that I think could merit Academy Award consideration for sure. Kirk, your showstopper.
You said dropping little nuggets. Did you mean
truffles?
Dropping little truffles?
I did. You're right. Yes, sorry about that.
You did. Just bleep it out and just edit over it in post-prod. It's all good.
Done deal.
Yeah, the layers are so beautiful. Thank you for articulating, the what course of the meal we were on with this movie. It's fun to think about the movie as a meal. I love that, Cam. My showstopper for this was the device of the pig substituting for a person, and then wrapped up in the narrative of serving a dish and serving us each portion of the story, just like Cam said. So I'll start with the pig versus the person device, because it's very simple it would have been very simple for them to give Nicolas Cage a daughter that he lived with, or a wife, or a best friend, or a brother that gets taken from him. We had an underground culinary fight club. Why couldn't they have taken him for some kind of debt he owed, right? That's a very feasible thing. And who knows, maybe that's where the script started and they ended with the pig. Who knows? But I think the idea of swapping it for a pig makes it all the more interesting. You're like, wait, what? A pig? Okay, it's very easy. We understand human connection. We understand how a relationship can be built that way. But you flip it on its end. You're like, what is he invested into this pig? What's happened in his past? What can the audience project on that, right? Did he have a daughter? We get this. We get the leftover, the bakery of the coworker. From what I instilled, did we ever hear that was a relative or it was a former coworker? Do you remember, Cam?
I don't remember.
I feel like it was another partner in the business or like go-to employee. I don't ever feel like it was a daughter, which it seems like they're setting you up for when they start that scene. And when you swap out the pig for a person, you get just so much more opportunity to explore Nicolas Cage's character versus the peril that the person who has been taken and their emotions, their well-being, their state of life, right? So obviously we do come to care about this pig, but when we're weighing the options of, is the clock running out on the pig or is the clock running out for Nicolas Cage? I think that's fascinating, and it was so well done. And then you think about that pig, right? There's all, it's all wrapped up. The whole movie is wrapped up in culinary and food, in what we absorb, in what we need to fuel ourselves. Well, Nicolas Cage's fuel is a pig, and there's no pork dishes ever seen in this movie for obvious reasons. So I think all of that together is pretty fascinating. It was just very, very well executed, very very like sidestep creative. Like it's not in your face. It really is. Again, mine and Cam's are pretty close to one another. It's really trusting your audience to see how this all fits together, and how you can't quite put your finger on it, but it's very, just the themes are screaming at you and just really making you think about all of it. And I would venture to say the people who don't enjoy this movie really stopped at John Wick Pig. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I think there are probably a fair number of people who did check out because they didn't stay in the pocket that I was mentioning earlier of, I want to learn more. They're giving me nuggets. I want to figure this out. Which, if you stay along for that ride, it's well worth it. Well worth it. And I think you make a good point too. Trusting your audience a lot of times doesn't mean necessarily just revealing everything at the right time, but there are some things you just don't reveal at all, and that takes another level of guts, is saying, you don't need to know this. You can think about it yourself, because this is important in your life for you to be able to relate to this movie, that I leave this out, so that if we don't know that it's his daughter or coworker or something, you can put your personal circumstance in to fill that role. You can fill it with your imagination and enrich the story for your experience. That's, that's next level. That's something that all great screenwriters tend to do, the ones that are renowned. So that this is, I just saying that to really drive home that this is an excellent screenplay, really well done story, and really well executed. Beautiful. All right, so let's move over to the other side, which is director's shoes. We said we have a new director-ish on the scene here with a few smaller credits before this film. What notes do we have for the story or the direction or what have you? And I'll kick us off. And I'll start by saying that it's going to be nitpicky because my score is in the 9s. And when you're in the 9s, it means you're a really excellent movie. But what is it that holds you back from reaching the 10 or the high 9s or what have you? And I think for me, the scale of this movie is a little too small for the story to reach its full potential. Like, this movie is powerful, as we've talked about, but it doesn't have the weight behind it to be seen by the masses. It's a smaller scale film, and the story is small in scale in the sense that it's very localized in this one area. It's in this hyper focused industry of, the culinary industry in Portland, during X time. So the scale of it's a little too small for it to have mass appeal and to drive home the point of the story in a way, because like we were just talking about, some people are going to check out of this movie. And if they had brought it to a different scale, maybe it wouldn't be the case. But maybe it's harder to tell the story if you don't use an actual pig and et cetera. So maybe it had to be built at that scale. Like I said, nitpicky. Other things, there wasn't like a iconic punch you in the chest kind of moment where it was like, the big cinematic, like, this is the thesis of the movie. There were multiple points where the thesis was presented and it was powerful, but there wasn't one where it was like, boom, and there's the kicker. There's the one that drives it home and makes you feel this movie for days to come. And so for that reason, it doesn't have the same level of rewatchability. It doesn't have, this isn't going to be, like movies that are in the high 9s or movies like Jaws, things that like have these big moments and have these iconic things that help them have the staying power. This is an excellent movie and one that I think people should absolutely see. But again, if we're talking the nines, there are some things that it's missing that keep it from reaching its full potential, in my opinion. But those are just a few of them for me.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful points. I think that if I was the director at the dinner scene at some point, I would have had um, Nicolas Cage off Amir's dad, just absolutely kill
Ooh,
him. I think that would have, maybe that's too expected, but I really wanted it to happen because, he's eating there and he's drinking the wine and it's like, oh, there he's probably going to poison him because he's a master chef, and that didn't happen. But I really wanted some sort of like shocking, subtle, like terrifying Foley artistry to like have him like slit Amir's dad's throat or something crazy like that. I think that what we were missing was a full resolve to this. But such is life. There's no full resolve to many
bingo.
things. So, but I think that did I need a full death scene? No, it would have been cool. It would have been that option. It was on the table to take care of. But I still, like you said, big cinematic moment. Their biggest moment really comes at the what's it called, the
The
restaurant in the middle
restaurant.
of the film. It really doesn't come later on. We get a very brief grief scene where you can project your feelings on what Nicolas Cage is feeling, and then the film's pretty much over. I really feel that there was something missing to the end of this film. There were other options. Mostly, I think kill Arkin with a knife to the throat.
That would have been wild. That would have been wild and kind of awesome. But yeah, I think it sounds like we're both saying that there was a punch. There was a punch needed, and we got, it was almost a Nomadland type movie where it's like you stay here, and you go up every once in a while in terms of tension, climax, things like that, but you don't really like have the big build, big resolve. Like you get
Yeah,
sort of waves of it throughout.
yeah, just like No Bad Land, except this movie was good. I agree. I fully
Oh,
agree with you.
roasted, roasted, roasted. Yeah, good stuff. So let's dive into our final thoughts and scores. So, Pig, man, I didn't know what to expect coming into this movie. Had definitely, I watched it months ago. Had heard rumblings that this was one to look out for if you're a Nic Cage fan. I was like, sign me up. But didn't know what to expect because we had a new director. As I was looking at the cast and the billing, I was like, no idea what what to expect from this, and I was very pleasantly surprised because a lot of times with directors who have not done feature films like this, especially one that's heavily dialogue driven, heavily narrative driven, and doesn't have a big splashy plot with a big twist or anything like that. You see mistakes, and there were very few in this movie. I thought that cinematically it worked. The score was good. The visuals were great. The style was clear. It was consistent. The pacing was solid. Again, it's a tight 90 minutes. You don't really ever feel bored in that. The character arcs were exquisite, lovely. The acting performances were really good. I mean, it checks a ton of boxes. It really does, and it gives us a really iconic Nic Cage performance that I hope lots of people get to see because it truly is a really beautiful performance in its simplicity and the comfort level that he had with this character, and the way that he built it out. It was really, really well done. For me, it's a 9.0 out of 10. I sort of spoiled that my score was in the nines. It's a flat 9. It's a 9.0 out of 10 for Pig. It's going to be a competitive year in awards season because so many films were in the backlog from the COVID year. And so, I think this one will be borderline if it makes the cut for best picture or, an acting or writing award. It'll be borderline, but I wouldn't at all be surprised if it was there on the big night, Oscars night. So Pig, 9.0 out of 10 for me.
Yes. My grandpa has a farm and there are no longer farm animals on there because he's older and they are gone. I remember all the pigs on his farm, and they smelled horrendous. And every time I go to any kind of like small farm, like, oh, come to Grant's farm, we've got little piggies. I think it's disgusting. I think that people who I think that people who get excited about having like baby pigs as their dogs, I think they're crazy. I just want to put that out front
careful.
here. But seeing Nicolas Cage walk around with this pig was adorable because I couldn't smell it. I could not smell it, and it was wonderful. I think that the hyperbole of the culinary fight club was a little exaggerated. It really comes out of left field. But there's lots of arguments to make it work. Probably more than it doesn't, but it still sits heavily on me. Like, can I really say that the Fight Club chefs are part of one of my favorite movies? I think I'm there. I'm not as high as Cam. I'm very close simply because of that scene in the middle. I'll talk about it till the day I die now. It's so powerful. It's so specific. When you're talking to your audience, don't be general. And this was one of the most specific statements I've ever heard in a film. This movie gets an 8.8 out of 10 kernels for me.
Beautiful. That's Pig. That's our review of Pig. If you haven't seen the movie and you listen to our review just because you're like, I'm never going to see this movie, I would encourage you to go check it out. I really would. I think it's a good watch. It's a short watch, so it's not going to take up too much of your time, and you'll get something out of it. I think you will. We didn't even talk much about Amir's arc with his mom. We assume his mom's dead the whole time. We find out that she's, was comatose, and that his dad basically gave up on her, and that's why he finds the love between Nic Cage and the pig so inspiring. And it's just it's beautiful stuff. It's really good human storytelling, and it's well done. You just have to tip your cap because it's really, really, really good. But that's our review of Pig. Guys, we're getting ready to hit the ground running with some huge reviews. I mean, huge stuff. We got Venom: Let There Be Carnage coming. I don't know what we're gonna do with that and the Sopranos movie that's coming out. If we're gonna do double review or what have you, we'll figure all of that out. Then we got No Time to Die. Dune is coming out. I mean, man, we got no time to waste. We got a lot of big stuff coming out, so it's going to be a good time to lock in on this podcast. Get out to the movie theater, throw on your mask, and do it. If there's things that are debuting on HBO Max, like Many Saints of Newark and Dune, if you don't get a chance to go to theaters, check it out on HBO Max and join us for the ride, because I, for one, am extremely excited about what the next few weeks and months in film are going to look like. We're also following What If week by week. Our episode 7 recap just dropped today, and episode 8 of the show drops tomorrow. So our recap of that episode will be coming very soon. So keep an eye on that. And we've got a lot to cover in the next few weeks. But as always, want to thank you guys for listening. Want to also thank our executive producer, Ryan Spriggs, for helping us out with this podcast, and the band Rhetoric, who wrote our original music, which you're about to hear right now. Check them out on Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, whatever. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you then.